Hooray! I think it works. I think it's alive. Um, Hello. How you doing,
Hello
Sabrina? You all right? Yeah, we're a bit late. Primarily because we're having a bit of a natter and trying to get microphones and things to work correctly. But we're here. Is this part 5?
Part 5. I can't believe it's part 5 already.
How? Yeah. Whoa. Okay, it is part 5. We've made it to part 5. Thank you for joining us. Just to let you know what we're doing. Actually, I put a few little banners together very quickly because it'd probably be quite useful to do this. The first one is to say, if you're watching this and you fancy sharing it with your friends and WordPress colleagues or whoever they may be, then there is a bit.ly link. Now, the bit.ly link, you would need to be in our Facebook group because it only goes into the Facebook group or it goes onto YouTube, which is the second link, which is wbpbuilds.com. So the bit.ly link is if you're in our Facebook group, and the WP Builds link /live is for YouTube. And but you'll find that on our website embedded. So please go, and could I encourage you, whilst Sabrina and I talk for a bit, just push us to one side, go to Twitter, go to whatever, and share those links and tell people that, you know, you'd encourage them to come and watch this because that would be nice. The other one to say is, well, that's pretty much the same thing, so I shan't bother. I shall just put that one back up for a moment and say hello, Sabrina. How are you doing? How's life been this week?
Thank you. I'm doing good. But I just found out that WordCamp Europe will be online in 2021, so I'm a little bit disappointed at the moment.
Yeah, the email arrived about 3 minutes before we got in touch, didn't it? About a quarter of an hour ago. And the email says that WordCamp Europe, which is due to take place, wow, like what is that? 10.5 months from now? They've already made the decision that they're going to do it online. I wonder how that'll impact other WordCamps and other events. But it does seem to be the way, doesn't it? People are cautious that they don't want to waste time and money if there's not a chance. But it is sad. You were going to go, I guess.
I was looking forward to go and to be involved if it was in Porto. And of course, I will go for online as well. But it's not that exciting as an in-person event. But the nice thing is that we all can be sure it will happen. Like, there is
something will happen.
Mm-hmm.
Something will happen. I have to confess, I found the lure of my normal life was stronger than the lure of WordCamp Europe. What I mean by that is because it was an online event, just ordinary life managed to put its foot in the door and say, I'm here, do me instead. So I had great expectations of putting the computer on and popping it in the kitchen and interacting with it. But then just, ordinary life got in the way. And so I didn't see as much as I'd wanted, which is a bit sad. But
yeah, that's why we appreciate in-person events so much, because they are real life. You are not just like watching it from the side. You 100% there,
Yeah. Hello, Chris. Nice to see you. Thank you. Very nice to see you, Chris. Thank you. Oh, no. Yeah. Well, I guess it'll be in Porto in 2020. I mean, I don't know. I presume they've done a lot of they've presumably got very close to having all the ducks in a row. So I'm guessing they'll go for Porto again because they've figured out which hotels to use and all of that kind of stuff. WordCamp Scarborough. Yes. 20. That's where I live. It's not a place you want to go for a WordCamp, I'll tell you that. But it is a nice place. But Chris, you're not far away. I don't know if you're still not far away. Maybe you've come out of lockdown and you've moved elsewhere. But come over and have a beer, Chris. Come on. The sea is warm. What's that?
Maybe WordCamp London then.
Yeah, WordCamp London is going to be much later. It's usually kind of it would have happened long ago. But this year they decided to push it down the road, primarily because of the bike ride that we were going to do to WordCamp Europe. And Dan, the organizer, was, that was going to eat up all the preamble time to organize. So they pushed it later, and of course then it didn't happen. But you never know. Anyway, we'll see. So this is part 5 of our exploration, trying to figure out how on earth to get a WordPress plugin to go from nothing, 0 installs, to 10,000 installs. It's a lofty ambition. I would stress, if you're watching this for the first time, we're not coming from a point of view of we've done this, we're going to tell you how to do it. It's really the opposite. We don't know what we're doing, so that's why we're doing this, to help each other along the way. And we've had some really nice feedback. I had a few emails and tweets this week from people saying that they found it really useful. And I know that you have as well, Sabrina, because you posted a few of them. So that's really nice. That's lovely. And yeah, so if you want to take it from here and tell us what we're going to do this week, that'd be good.
Okay, so I just have one thing to mention in addition to all this, that I'm writing down the recap of the previous episodes and I placed them on my website. I won't bother right now with placing a link, but there is a link under each episode on YouTube and in WP Build's Facebook group where you can read recaps of the previous episodes. So far we discussed how to make lean canvas for WordPress plugin. What else? How to collect and process user feedback. We tried to make user scenarios out of that feedback to find out who and how uses our plugins. And the next big thing we were talking about was documentation. We started to talk about this in the previous episode. And actually, I was thinking this will be a small topic for one episode. And because it seems to be so boring and I don't know, someone mentioned on Twitter that it's like dirty dishes after the party. You just have to do this. So why not using a dishwasher for that? I was thinking something like this too. But then I was researching and looking into what people do with their documentation and stuff. And it turned out to be such an exciting thing if you can make it work right. So today we're going to talk about making documentation for WordPress plugin.
It's actually, I think you're exactly right. It isn't the most interesting. Well, from my perspective, I found it to be quite a dull thing to do, actually. I was thinking it would be really engaging, but I found it quite frustrating. But in my defense, I have been fielding my children the entire time that I've been trying to do documentation. So I'm constantly getting interrupted. It's the lockdown and homeschooling and all that. I'm getting interrupted all the time. So I never quite managed to get through the finish line on just about anything I start. So it leads to enormous frustration. I think if I'd have been tasked with the idea of documenting what I've tried to document a year ago, I would have just hammered it out in half an hour and just done it. But that sadly is not my life at the minute. So right. That is part of it. But I stress that it isn't the most glamorous thing. I think it's fair to say that quite a lot of the people who would be building plugins, they're kind of focused on the product, right? They're just interested in the code and getting it shipped. And it's one of those things like sales and marketing and documentation. It's maybe not something, if you've never done this before, that A, you thought would be a time suck, and B, you might thought, oh, I'll just do a little bit and it'll be enough. And actually, I think it turns out it's way bigger than I anticipated. So with that said, do you need to share your screen at any point, or are you happy?
Not right now, but yeah, okay. For me, it was also like I was always thinking the documentation is for existing users only. So for me, it seems like a boring thing, and also I don't have a lot of existing users at this point, right? Just to mention for those who are watching for the first time, I have a free plugin which is called SpeedGuard. It runs daily. site speed test on your website and sends you a notification if in case it got worse or it got bad or something. And this is the plugin that I'm trying to grow from 0 to 10K. And Nathan's plugin is A/B split test. It helps you to make conversions on your website look nice.
Yeah. Exactly what it does.
So I was thinking, what is the point of bothering with documentation if I don't have a lot of active installs at this point? I have 100 installs now. But then I found out that documentation can help you not only with existing users, but also to gain new users. And we'll talk about this in a bit. But for now, what documentation can do for existing users? Obviously, it's help them to find answers, right? I can remember, Nathan, you were saying that the way you filled documentation at some point was when someone asked a question and you made a documentation page for that. Is that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. That's been really good, actually, in that if a question comes in which I feel is going to be repeated or indeed has been repeated, then I quickly knock out something. And on a couple of occasions, I've actually just thrown a video together. But it's not to say I always do that. So somebody asked a question yesterday, I think it was, where I just kind of felt it wasn't going to come up again. It was a bit of an edge case one. So it was to do with Thrivecart, I think it was. And I just thought this probably won't occur again. So I'll just hammer out the answer. So I just wrote it in the chat and sent it and forgot about it. But yeah, we have done that. Yeah.
So I think the main point of having a nice documentation is to decrease the number of support tickets, right?
Yeah.
To free you from monkey business of doing the same thing over and over again, right? Like typing answers to the same questions over and over again. But also there is a chunk of users that have a question, but they don't ask you in the chat or anywhere, and they just leave with that question being staying open, right? So nice documentation will help them to find answers to this question. And I can imagine if you have like pretty general question, for example, about compatibility or something, you just write down the answer. But there's documentation that should be prepared in advance for developers, for example. How to use hooks, filters, API if you have one, and all this stuff. It's not something that can be just added on the flow, right? It's something that should be prepared. So I was looking into examples of making like very, very tech documentation, like API documentation or something, to make it look good. Because usually you're using a product, you're using some software, and you just have to cope with the documentation. Documentation for the software isn't that good usually, right?
No.
You're in API documentation and you just, oh my God, this is too hard to understand. I'm just giving up, right? And I was looking into nice examples of plugins that have good documentation, even for very technical sides of things. Let me share my screen.
Sure.
I think ACF has one of the best. It's
Elliot Condon sweats the details. So they've got the right approach to pretty much everything, I'd say. Yeah. Let's see.
Am I sharing my screen right now?
No, it hasn't come up. You I think earlier before we pressed go live, I think you stopped sharing it somehow. So you'll have to. There we go. It's popped up now. Here we go. Yay! There you go. I've got it. ACF documentation. I can see it.
So what I like about it, First, like you just open the page and you can see everything like clearly. The documentation is divided like getting started, and then obviously field types and functions and actions, but also there are guides over here. So depending on what you're searching, you see everything like ordered conveniently. I think it's a convenient way to do this. But also if you click like functions or something and you go into like developers stuff for developers, it doesn't seem like it machine to machine language, you know? It seems like it's human to human still, though it's about functions and actions and hooks and code and stuff, but it still somehow sounds like being said by human to the human. That's what I like about it.
He definitely sweats the details. I remember looking over his documentation years ago and thinking it was so comprehensive. He kind of covered everything that I needed, at least anyway. I think it was to do with maps or something like that. And I was really impressed. You know, he's taking the time to kind of color format everything in the proper way and set things out into little different topic areas. It's nice. It's nice. I confess, I don't think I would have stumbled across it. You know, it's not like an SEO tool or anything. The documentation here isn't going to lead me to purchase anything, I don't think, but it definitely helps you after the fact.
Right. And also, like, I like that they have examples, like there is the description and there are examples on the page, right? Like this one that I opened, it's like pretty small example, but sometimes, for example, with repeater field or something, there are like huge examples of what you can do. And for example, you were looking into this part of documentation to find out the solution for this precise problem you have right now. But then you're reading the documentation and you can understand that you can use this field, for example, this function on this hook in some other case because it was in the examples, you know. Also, I like in their documentation that they have, when you search the documentation, you search both the documentation itself and also the support forum. Because there are so many ways of using ACF, right, that can be like documented because they are not, it's not something that everyone uses. But on their forums, there are a lot of like specific cases and they're answered by other users, and you can find like specifically what you are looking for. And these forum documents, they often found, if you Google something, they often get found by Google as a solution to your case.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure we can all identify with that, the amount of times that you've Googled search for something, you've ended up at a support forum because you've asked the question, how can I something to do with ACF? And usually the question in the forum begins how, and then hopefully the exact same thing that you asked for. So yeah.
That's what I was looking for not long ago, like how to pre-fill ACF fields with using pyramid, right? So I found the doc, and now I can like see how other people solved this problem. I think this is like very nice thing to combine what other people do with your product, with your own documentation. I was thinking like a lot of plugins have Facebook groups for communication, and some other they have forums. The nice thing to have a Facebook group is that it's kind of more lively. It's more interaction. It's more communication and stuff. But when you have a support forum and you have everything stored, it's a nice thing to have all the data stored. It's not going down in the
Facebook groups are just an absolute, you know, it's a sinkhole for anything that you want to search for. I mean, the kind of Facebook groups that I'm in, you don't really go for search, you go for usually conversation or something that happened this time during the last week or something. So, you know, it's fine for that. But it feels to me like that's that, you know, you could ask a question and hope that somebody picks it up and answers you if this group is big enough. But I think there's do you know, we don't have a forum, and I don't think we've got any plans to put a forum together. In fact, we did discuss it, and we aren't going to do it, just because we didn't want the overhead of looking after the forum at this stage. But it does seem like a really sensible thing. And obviously in Elliot's case, ACF's case, there's a thriving community. I mean, there must be literally millions of people who've used ACF who are able to answer questions and assist and, you know, help out. So it does make sense. I'm not sure at what point in the journey a forum becomes a good thing as opposed to a difficult thing for us to manage. So as an example, do you think you would set up a forum yet for SpeedGuard, or do you think it's just another thing you've got to keep updating at the moment with probably very little interaction?
I think it depends a lot on what plugin does.
Yeah.
I have a feeling if I set up Facebook group, for example, for SpeedGuard, the questions will be not concerning SpeedGuard itself, but a lot of questions about performance. And it's kind of a rabbit hole. It's never ending. So, for example, there will be questions, the answers for which could be found on the internet or in the talks or in books, you know, not about plugin itself. The same thing, you know, this plugin query monitor, right?
Yeah.
So the question, if you look into the support threads on WordPress.org for that plugin, they all are about what caused the error on my website, you know, because the plugin itself monitors errors and debugs and stuff. But the question, they're not related to the work of the plugin mostly, but people are looking for help to solve errors on their website. They're not quite related. It's a hard choice, I think.
I quite like I like the fact that he's marked that as solved, that particular problem. You know, you can see that right at the top next to the title is a great big banner, well, a big blue green circle saying solved. And that's quite nice, because often I'll arrive at forums and I've no idea of the status of it until you get to the very bottom. And then, of course, you realize sometimes that actually this thing's completely unfixed and there's no solution here. It's just a dead end. Sometimes you read the question and sadly it's sat there for 2 years and nobody's contributed to it as well. But to show that it's been solved right at the top next to the title, I think that's really clever. Then I know the answer to that question is in there somewhere. Yeah.
You know, I just noticed that I can't remember the situation when there were many pages of answers. Usually it's one page or maybe rarely two, while sometimes on forums there are these threads, they are never ending. You know, you just scroll and scroll and scroll. Here on Advanced Custom Fields docs, it never happens. It just got solved somehow, like in 5-6 iterations.
Yeah, I guess it's the nature of the plugin, isn't it? There's probably is a finite answer. It's not like you're asking, I don't know, something about, in your case, how do I speed up a website? You know,
Exactly.
there's 4,500 different ways you could do that task, but how to pre-fill ACF forms based on a query parameter, there's probably just one way of doing it properly. And also I would imagine that Elliot himself, maybe not in this case, but I know that he is in there quite a lot and that he's got people to do it. And so it's a one-on-one interaction, isn't it? It's the questioner, the OP, then the person operating the forum, and it quickly gets solved, and it's kind of Q&A style, as opposed to the community jumping in. But if you go to something like, I don't know, Stack Overflow, can sometimes get a little bit confrontational with people. That's not how you do it. This is the best way to. Okay,
Right.
Sorry. It's interesting though. But I just nice little comment here from Chris Hughes actually, which I think is worth putting up, which I think you're going to address later, if I remember rightly. Having in-depth documentation is a sign I look for with plugins. It not only shows the care of the developer, it means I have a backup resource if I can't find an answer by myself. And I think that's a really good point. The quality of the documentation. I mean, Chris obviously goes out to look at it. I know quite a few people who do a lot of due diligence before they purchase any plugins. They go to the About Us page, they check that the business is legitimate, they look at their history, when did they get founded. They'll certainly go to things like support forums and things like that and look and see if the plugin developer has taken the time, or if it's really patchy with nothing there. And I guess you can draw conclusions either way, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I agree. So we are supposed to do a nice documentation, right?
It's a better idea.
Yeah, to make our plugins to look nice, not only for existing, but for new users as well. Another example that I wanted to share, it's Google Maps API documentation. You know, you won't expect something very human-like from the giant like Google, right? But even them, they are making their documentation in the way it like feels like a personal touch there. You know, if you can remember how their API documentation looked like 4 years ago, it was a list of classes and functions and actions and just, you know, the name of the function and its description and the arguments it takes and nothing more. But if you search through their documentation now, it looks nice. Like, for example, for Google Maps, the first tutorial is named "Adding a Map with a Marker," which makes absolute sense. You know, this is the first and very basic thing. So they were thinking about what is the first and very basic thing that people would do with our software. They would place a map with a marker on their website, and they just answered this question in their documentation and give like a simple example how to do this, and then they go deeper, like how to use all the additional stuff to achieve what you want. So this is how it looks like. They just like answering the question, but this can be this specific document. It could be called like how to start with Google Maps, which is not that informative, right? But here is the task, and here is the solution. And I like that they have outline here.
Yeah.
Right. They have pieces of code and stuff. I was looking into a lot of documentation recently, and I found out that this layout, this design of documentation, for me personally, it looks like the most logical one. When you have on the left bar the main outline, on the top you have outline for this post, and then you have like simple navigation, simple fonts, simple headers, and everything looks so simple that nothing distracts you from what you are reading, right?
It feels like a bit of an onboarding exercise in that, because it doesn't give you the edge cases, does it? You know, the one-off quirky things that somebody asks for, but it gives you the look. If you're starting out with Google Maps, there's a pretty good chance that anything you want to ask is in these, I don't know, 20 articles. That's quite a nice idea. So the story here being go to the overview, see if what you want is there, and then just sort of keep drilling down. That would take quite a Herculean effort to actually write as an individual. I'm sure Google have got a great big team of people to assist with this, but you know, from my point of view, that would be quite a lengthy thing to do.
Yeah. So another thing that I found out, there is I saw it before, but I didn't know it can be used for documentation. Something Pages on GitHub, right?
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Sure.
I'll show you the example. So, so GitHub provides the way to make websites, web documents on their subdomain. And some, I can't find the link, some companies use this for documentation. For example, I think it was Twig documentation.
Yeah, I saw it earlier. I think you must have linked to it. It was an open source project for mimicking what you've just seen on Google Maps. No,
Oh no,
what was it?
it was Timber. Was it Timber?
I can't remember what it was that you showed me. Timber, was it? Okay. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
definitely an open source one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't this one, but it was basically the same. Yeah.
It looks very nice too. It's kind of comprehensive, easy to go through. The same design, the same layout. Like the main outline here, the outline for the post over here, and everything looks like usual, easy to navigate. And also, I like that you can have a link to the smaller part, so you can give to someone else. Yeah. So these kind of the solutions for API documentation that I found nice.
Yeah. We have a very different one. Ours is more of a knowledge base, and it's more of a discrete. So it's a bit like the ACF one in that it was divided up into primarily subjects at the beginning. So it's like frequently asked questions and Beaver Builder in our case, Elementor, Gutenberg, and then videos, that kind of thing. And it doesn't really follow. There isn't really a linear pattern to it. It's not start here and keep going down. It's just one-off little things, but we've categorized them. And the platform that we're using, which is called Gist, it's a bit like Intercom that you see everywhere. It enables you to create knowledge base articles from support requests, but equally it enables you to point people in the chat widget to support requests, and they can search for the topics in the search as well. So it enables you to.
It's both ways integration.
Yeah. Which is quite nice, because obviously if somebody comes on and you are not available, then it flips over to search as opposed to chat, and all of the support forum, all of the knowledge base, articles appear in a searchable way. So, they can start typing, and if one of the words appears, like Beaver Builder, for example, it will just filter out all the ones. And it's not perfect, but it's okay. I know that we seem to be moving in a way that I'm not all that. I don't really like interacting with bots, to be honest. But we do seem to be entering an era where a lot of people are trying to strip away their support teams and replace them with automated bots. So, they'll get to the chat widget and they'll say, what is it you've got a problem with? And here's 4 options. Click one of those. And then here's another question. It's a bit like when you phone a company up and you have to press 1 for this department, press 92 for this department, and you're there for ages. I'm not sure that works for me, but that kind of stuff is an option, and it seems to be more widely used. But I like what you're showing us as well. It looks good.
I hate chatbots and all this stuff, voice calls as well. But probably it's the thing that should be tested. Sometimes I can imagine it takes lots from bank support, or like huge organizations, like where people really ask the same questions, like very difficult questions.
Yeah. So in my case, the burden of writing the articles and putting those paths together of, well, if they ask for this, give them these 4 options. Then if they ask for that, it's just not worth it. But obviously, if you're a huge international bank that is possibly receiving the same question 500, 1,000 times a day, then it really does make sense, doesn't it? I suppose. And nobody wants to be on call waiting for half an hour. And if you can navigate your way through those chat things quickly, then that could be helpful.
I read that book a long time ago. It was called Wow Factor, the Wow Factor. So the idea of that book was, when you make customers wow at your service, at your product, it's not something like equal for each company. It absolutely depends on what expectations customer has towards your product or your service. You know, when you book a hostel for $10, you have a certain amount of expectations. And when you book a hotel room for $400, you have another amount of expectations. So the wow factor will be different.
Yeah.
In one case and in another case. Like if they put, for example, a bar of chocolate on your bed in the hotel for $400, it won't be a wow factor. You won't be surprised and amazed, and you won't tweet about this. But if they do this in hostel, for example, it will be something like mind-blowing.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. So, yeah, I suppose you're right. If you go the extra mile, do you think it's a selling point then? So, we were talking earlier about how Chris would look before buying at documentation. I would, to some extent. I don't know that I'd be as aggressive doing that as other people might be, but it definitely, well, it can't hurt. It can only help, right? If you've got a load of support documentation and it's well laid out and well thought through, and you know, there's videos in there and pictures of screenshots and code examples and all sorts of other things, it's going to help, right?
That was my point. I think it depends very much on the plugin, on what it does. You know, for example, if for example A/B split test. So when I'm thinking about this, I instantly have questions in my mind: how it will work with my current setup, how it will work with the theme that I'm using, with the builder that I'm using,
Yeah.
and I want to know how I will. So instantly I have questions about troubleshooting and conflicts and problems. So looking into documentation, I would expect documentation to have something about these things. For example, like WP Rocket has. Oh, sorry.
Not a lot.
So we are getting there step by step, right?
Yeah.
I haven't got any documentation at all. So, for example, WP Rocket has a huge section which is called troubleshooting, because the main issue with caching plugins, not only with WP Rocket, but with any caching plugins, is troubleshooting between, like, conflicts between the caching plugin and all other plugins and theme and custom code and everything, and hosting environment and everything that you have on your website. Is a huge problem. So they have like a separate chapter about troubleshooting, and I think it makes sense. While for some other plugins, it might not make so much sense to have like troubleshooting section. For example, you know, like like the plugins for under construction page, or that helps you to get under construction page.
Yeah, it does one thing and it's nice and straightforward. Yeah.
But instead, you'll be wondering what kind of designs, what kind of layouts they have. If you can add a logo over there, if you can customize colors and stuff, this will be your questions, right?
Right. Yeah.
So probably it depends on plugin itself. That's why we were defining our user scenarios before talking about documentation, so we can use our user scenarios to make a proper documentation for people who use our products, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting. I think there is something to be said for the sort of, well, not only the SEO benefit of having a good, let's say, forum or documentation area. There's obviously a countless times have I ended up at a product because I've done a search for a question, and there's something in a forum somewhere or on a documentation page, and I've ended up thinking, okay, I didn't know that existed. That's interesting. So, there's an SEO benefit to it, but, also it's just helping the people out. One thing I'm I am going to struggle with, I think, is preempting. Like, as an example, you just said that it would be very helpful to have information about what themes it may work with, or what conflicts have been discovered, and all those kind of things. I hadn't really thought about that one. That hadn't occurred to me that was something that we ought to do. In other words, we've definitely tested it with this, and this, and it's fine. If you want to test it and let us know, we'll add that to the list of successful themes it's working, or whatever. And so I'm struggling to sort of come up with scenarios that aren't my own, that I could then write documentation about. Hence the upside down model of me writing it after somebody has got in touch. But it's interesting. I just need to pay more attention. But also, you can reach out to the people. I actually modified the video this week that we send out every time somebody subscribes, and I'm now asking them to supply feedback, and I actually speak into the video what the URL is for feedback. So I just say thanks for purchasing the plugin and all sorts of other things, and then say please reach out to /support if you've got any problems. And then I point out the feedback roadmap thing that we've got, where you can leave ideas for feature requests or bug fixes or whatever. Mention that in the video as well. And so in that way, I'm hoping that people will figure out, okay, this is a thing, I can go and help, and these guys will be on it, and they'll help me out if there's a problem.
Right. So there are like a lot of advantages of having a good documentation for existing users. Just to sum up few that we named, like first of all, to let them find the answers by themselves, to find answers when you answer to them, so you can decrease the number of support tickets. And what else? It helps to build a community around your product. As you mentioned, for advanced custom fields, it's a huge community, and they're all like brought together by problems they solved with product, right?
So, as a really interesting example of this is that this whole thing, this WP Build enterprise, this wouldn't have happened without Beaver Builders support forums and things like that, because that's how I met David, who's the other half of this podcast. That's how I came across him. And I'm not really sure of the state of play of other WordPress plugins particularly, because I don't really hang out religiously in them, but I've got a feeling that there's quite nice little ecosystems going on for, well, let's say WP Rocket or Elementor or Beaver Builder, and they're all sort of helping each other out and creating a nice little community feel, which ultimately helps sell it, helps it tick over to the next recurring invoice anyway.
Right. Not only sell it, but like being a part of community, like when someone new is becoming a part of the community, they learn new ways of using the product, or some things that they didn't know they can do with it. Like they learn about the functionality more, and they can benefit more from this product, and therefore it raises their chances to sorry, I forgot the word, to pay for another year.
Yeah, subscribe.
Yeah, to subscribe. Right?
Yeah.
So if you can see all the benefits that you're getting from the product, the chances are you won't even continue using it. But when you can see, oh, all right, I can do this, I can do that, I can build, oh, wow, someone built something like this with a Beaver Builder, for example. Oh, I never thought it's possible. And now you know that it's a thing.
I think that's where documentation comes in second place to Facebook groups. I think Facebook groups win in terms of just raw conversation. Forums and so on feel mostly to be about Q&A. I'm coming to the forum to post a question and to hopefully receive an answer. Whereas the Facebook groups, just because of the magnitude of Facebook and the fact that it's literally always in your pocket, you just sort of end up falling into conversations with people, and so those kind of things happen. The post of, oh, well, I didn't know you could do that. I see that all the time
Yeah.
just WordPress in general. Whoa, that is a thing. I didn't know that was possible. So nice comment here again by Chris. This is quite nice. I have customers who email support first to get a feel of the response times and quality. I guess it depends how much you're paying and how much you're going to rely on it for whatever need in your business too. So yeah, that kind of supports what you were saying. If it's there, people will go and check it and measure the documentation as a degree of how well they'll be supported and how likely they are to shell out their cash to be a part of that community and purchase it. Just can I ask you a question? On a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is like super important and 0 is this just doesn't matter to me at all, how do you and I know that you haven't done too much in terms of documentation, but where do you feel the importance lies? Does it come equal to writing new features? Does documentation come equal to answering literal support tickets? Does it come equal to any, or is it like a little bit lower, a little bit higher? Where does it feel like it fits in for you in terms of, if you had to prioritize your day, where would it fit?
Right? I am a one-man show, so I need to prioritize. I cannot do everything at the same time. So I think before these episodes, it was like 0 because I didn't see the point. But now, I just wanted to make a list what it does for existing users, and then to talk about how it can help you to bring new users. And when I found out all the ways that documentation can help you to bring new users on, it became for me, I think, at the point of 8 or
Wow.
9.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's really interesting. You see, yeah. Okay. Yeah. The next question then is a bit of a follow-up question, because I'd be interested to know what you think about this, and I'll tell you what my thoughts are straight away. If there's a video, I'll watch that without a shadow of a doubt. If the title of the documentation matches what I want and there's a video, I will watch that 100% of the time instead of reading it. If it's image-based text, if there's screenshots and things, then I'm more likely to get through it. And if it's just text, I'm likely to kind of lose interest. It doesn't matter how deeply interested and necessary it is for me. The reason I say all of that is because I feel that things like video and images, screenshots and things help people stick around and make it more appealing. The downside of that, of course, is that it increases the burden on, you and me to create it, because hammering out the text will take me next to no time. I can probably write 1,000 words in a shortish space of time. 1,000 words plus text, plus images, that's maybe double, because you got to think, well, which bits of the text deserve an image, and do I put arrows on it? Do I fade out other bit? You get all tied up in the way the image looks. And then video is just a different animal altogether. You get into intros and outros and music and fades and little partitions of the video. Next we're going to do this, and so you get a little subtitle which fades in and fades out. What are you going to do?
Okay, as a user, I would never, ever watch a video if there is a text there.
That's so interesting.
Yeah,
totally different.
Yeah, I know. That's it was always interesting to me how people can watch videos about coding. It just can't get into my mind how they do this. I can only read about code. I hate everything interrupting it. That's why I find the API documentation so nice. It's like text only, no pictures, no videos. It's super, super simple to me.
Yeah. No, I am always sucked in by the video, to the point where I've actually reached out to a couple of plugin developers just to say, your videos are amazing.
Oh.
whoever has done that deserves a pat on the back. A notable example would be Toolset. Toolset have recently hired a guy, and his name I've forgotten. I do apologize to him, but they hired this guy about 6 weeks ago to take over their videos, and he's just brilliant. He's got a mind where he can sum up in 2 minutes what would take me half an hour to read. He clicks at the right speed, he's doing it, and I'm thinking, okay. And then there was another guy, and I don't use this product, but I have, because I do the news for WP Builds, I kind of try to keep up to date with lots of things. Another one called Oxygen, which is a page builder, and they've got this guy called Elijah, who does a terrific job with their videos. And I think videos are great for A, because I'm sucked in by them, and B, I think they're really good PR. I think you can show something off in a video in a way that just doesn't leap out of the page from text. You've really got to be super interested to get to the end of the text and discover the nugget. Whereas the video, within 3 seconds, you can say what you're going to do. Today, we're going to figure out how to do da-da-da-da-da. Stick around. It's going to take 2 minutes. Off we go. And I just feel that's great, but a nightmare to put together. So I've done quite a few videos for A/B split test, but it quickly became a burden in terms of time. So I've kind of stopped doing those at the minute.
Probably also because you do this so much, like video recording, editing and stuff, and you see all the small things that can be improved.
Yes. Yes. Well, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I was saying that maybe that's the thing, because for me, I have zero experience, and that everything will look good because I won't be able to know what is right, what's wrong.
Yeah, it's interesting as well, because it does come back to what we were saying earlier about good documentation. Chris was mentioning it, you were mentioning it. Looks good. It speaks of professionalism and a decent service. And I think it's pretty hard to mess up text. If you can spell correctly and you can punctuate correctly, and let's say your chosen language is English and you can write correctly in English, then it's hard to mock up. But a video can look so bad so quickly. You can really, so yeah, it's maybe one to be avoided. Honestly, from a time suck point of view, Sabrina, just don't get into video if you're not committed to doing it, because it's so fraught with difficulty to get it nice, at least anyway. So stick with the text and the images, I think.
I don't think that it's easy to go with text too. I think it's easier than videos to make the text documentation that is okay, that is like all right, but it won't be like fantastic and amazing. Sometimes, I don't know if it happens to you, but sometimes it happens to me that I find myself on someone's documentation and I don't use that product, and I don't really need to know, I don't really have a problem to solve with their documentation, but I am just sucked into reading because it's so interesting.
Yeah.
Just the documentation is interesting. I just can't stop reading because it's just interesting. And you mentioned that, and that their documentation is one of that kind. For me, I just navigated to it, and what they did, they divided their documentation. Like usually documentation is here are our classes, our functions, our hooks and filters, right? They did it the other way around. They divided by people who are using their product. So you just click documentation and you get here and you have the listing: directory and listing sites, membership sites, and custom business sites. And now you decide to which you belong, right? So if you are thinking about building a membership site, you're just clicking membership site, and you got all the documentation, all the stuff for people who are going to build membership sites. They made a course for people who are going to build membership sites. They took it, I think, to just another level.
Yeah, I think this is driven very recently. This is a new update. They've completely ripped out the old documentation and spent a lot of time and effort. Not only the visual presentation, because I think that page just looks great. I really like it. It's super clean. Watch, practice, use. That's a nice idea. Watch, practice, use. That's cool. I like that. I've not spotted that before.
And you know what? Sorry.
No, carry on.
Yeah, I just want to say that, so this is the course for those who are building membership sites. I can imagine that if you click on a directory or listing websites or custom business sites, the ways of using their plugin, the ways of using toolset, they will be the same, right? It's the same set of functionality of the plugins, but they describe this in different wording for different custom segments to showcase for this specific customer segment. You're just reading about this, and if you're thinking about building a membership site, it's like each time it's, oh, that's me, oh yeah, I know, that's my problem, that's my situation. So they took smaller questions and they just inserted them into the course, and I think it's so nice,
Yeah.
just to make it kind of more personalized.
I guess they really have a lot of a history of data on who their users really are. Membership. I mean, you wouldn't be putting a membership site up there as 1 out of 3 options unless you were pretty convinced that
Of course.
a significant amount of people using toolset for membership sites. But there was the option to search as well. Yeah, it's interesting. Really interesting. Anyway,
Yeah,
sorry.
I think this helps them to get new users for their product as well. It's not just like someone who is looking for documentation for the plugin and already using it. No, it's someone who is looking for information how to build WordPress, how to build a membership site with WordPress, and then they find through the Google or through the forums, or someone gave them a link or something, they find this course. And there are questions here like how to set up roles for sites membership, how to create lists of content, how to create my account page, how to customize my account page. These questions, they will pop up in your mind if you're going to build membership site, no matter with toolset or without it. And they're answering this question, but providing their tool to solve this problem. I think this is great.
Yeah, also be really interesting to see what kind of search engine results that page is created against.
Absolutely.
In that I can only imagine the amount of searches that contain the words membership site WordPress every day. It must be tens of thousands on Google, I would have thought. And usually that would hive off to an a membership plugin, MemberPress, something similar. Whereas Toolset is capable of doing that, but in previous iterations probably didn't big that up in the way that it's doing now. So it's quite a clever strategy. It's basically planting the flag in the sand and saying, look, we can do a bunch of stuff, but did you know we can do this thing too? This thing that you're going to go and buy an additional plugin for. Here's what we can do. And they all sound like all of those words, how to set up roles for a membership site. That just feels like it's straight out of a search results page.
Yeah,
how to build a homepage for a membership site, same thing. It's great. SEO right at the top, bullet pointed list of how-to questions. Nice.
So will you excuse me, Nathan, for 1 second? I need to plug my charger.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, if you run out of power, it's not a good thing.
That's all right. Yeah, exactly. And so they're answering the question that goes like, there is a question, how do I use toolset? But before that, there is a question, how do I build a membership site? And that's the question that they're answering in their documentation. And that's what we were talking about in the previous time when I was showing the screwdriver and wrench, right? So Yoast, for example, they're doing the same thing for SEO too. For example, they have a lot of pages like this. Google shows their own meta description for my site. So they are not quite saying like use our software so and so, but they're answering the question that people have before they start using Yoast, and they like offer their plugin as a solution to the problem
Yeah.
that have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
This
what.
seems like a really common, easy win if you have a big team of
Mm-hmm.
people who, I can only imagine the amount of resources that Yoast have to put into content creation. But,
Mm-hmm.
they must have a laundry list of topics that they want to cover and get their copywriters and their SEO teams to just dream up all these articles. And, I wish I had the time to do this and the budget to do it, but it's just not, it's not on the radar for me, and probably not on the radar for you, going soup to nuts in this way. Yeah.
Right. I'm, to be honest, I'm so lazy for me to start doing something. Maybe because when I start doing something, I usually take to the end. So I prefer not to start doing things that I'm not sure 100% about.
How about just
So
breaking it up then into, in order to get you started, how about refining that target into like a weekly goal of just something manageable, like 2 documentation articles of less than 1,000 words in a week or every 2 weeks or whatever, and you concentrate on getting one section filled up. Maybe it's or the opposite. You have a frequently asked questions. You have questions about SpeedGuard, the plugin, questions about site speed generally, and you just drop one article into these each time and do it that way.
maybe for someone it will work, like setting up a schedule and stuff, but not for me. I need like a huge why. I can sit and work for many hours straight, but I need a huge why. And I found out a huge why. If I will be able to find the documentation, like easy wins, documentation topics that will serve both as documentation and also as SEO, for SEO purposes, to bring new users, that's something that I can make myself work on. And how do you feel about talking next time how to use documentation to bring new users to your website?
Yeah, I think that's a really nice idea.
Mm.
It's going to be interesting because it's so easy to focus on the problems that people have already thrown at you. But
Mm-hmm.
I totally get the point of writing articles a bit like Yoast we've got here, and a bit like
Mm-hmm.
Toolset that we saw a minute ago, writing flights of fancy articles. You just sort of make up a scenario and go for it. And in our
Mm-hmm.
case, one of the things that is coming to light is that the plugin A/B split test is capable of doing way more than we're explaining.
Mm-hmm.
Like just so much more. And yet we don't get that out there. And so writing those articles about all of the features that the possibilities that you could have with it is a really good idea.
Yeah, but possibilities are endless. You have
Yeah.
to make like to outline few articles that,
Yeah.
instead of planning of writing like 100 articles about all the possibilities you can imagine now, it's better to write 3 articles at
Yeah.
least, the
Yeah.
main thing. Yeah, so I was thinking if I can find the right topics and right stuff to write about that will serve different, like few purposes, not just one purpose at one time, but few purposes, and will be like so I can make the most of that work.
Yeah.
It can motivate me to do that.
That will be
So
your why. Yeah.
yeah, that will be my why, to write documentation that will serve for existing users, so I can give them a link for this document, and will help me to get new users. And maybe I can use it in some other way also, but I haven't figured out in which way yet, but I will. We
You
won't be
will.
having any homework for the next time, because the next
This
time.
is music to
Brilliant.
my ears. This is music
Yeah.
to my ears. No homework last time. No homework this time. Just before we knock it on the head, I'm going to pull these comments up by Chris again. Thank you, Chris, for your continued comments. That's great. And this is true. Very true. And it's a problem I'm going to fall foul of. Videos are great. I agree with those points. But the downside is they need updating frequently. When you update your plugin, they are resource heavy in terms of, already the UI of our plugin is different.
Each time you have to record. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really a good point. There are services which are just trying, and I feel failing to offer a solution to this. Like there was a service called Fleek, FLEEQ, which enabled you to put together what felt like videos, but in fact it was HTML5 and screenshots. So it was zooming in and things. But the idea was you could update only the bits of the video that needed updating. So you could, if you had a 15-minute video and only the middle minute needed updating, you could do that. And everywhere that video was being consumed, it would update itself. But it just...
Then you come to the point when you said something about that screen.
Yeah. It's fraught with difficulty, and already we've got things that need reshooting, which is just not time. It's just not what we've got the time for. So he makes another point: getting customers to create videos for your product is a win-win. They come across as impartial and good for building brand awareness. But the downside is it could be terribly made video and miss some of the features. Yeah, I actually reached out to a guy called Paul Charlton, who's got a really big YouTube following. I think he's got like 79,000 YouTube subscribers. And he made a video for us, which was really nice. I just said, here's the plugin. How do you fancy making a video? And he said, yep, I'll give it a go. And he did. And it was great. And you could just see the traffic coming in. So totally get it, Chris. That was more PR than documentation, but it was quite useful. Oh yeah, here we go. I have Fleet, good time saver, but again, you need to put in the legwork. Yeah, I tried it and I just couldn't. I wasn't friendly with it at the end. I just got fed up with its limitations. Video's so perfect when you get it right, and Fleet is a kludge, but it does definitely solves the problem. And Vito, hi Vito. I just did a 45 1-minute videos to avoid needing to redo a full walkthrough every time we change something. Yeah, man, and you've got a massive product. I can only imagine that, a tiny amendment to the UI, the ripple effect of how many videos would be screwed up.
I'm just remembering, I was watching Vito's video, walkthrough for their clients, for developers. And then there was a shorter video. I think someone asked it in Facebook group. Is there a walkthrough for my clients, like for some developer or agency owner asked in Facebook group, is there a video that I can send to my clients how to use the product, because they don't quite get it right? And I like this idea a lot that WP Feedback does video instructions not only for their clients, but the clients of their clients.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good idea. I think Vito's WP Feedback is big enough that you can probably afford to invest the time in quite a few of those things. Actually, Vito, if you're still listening, the Tom, who I'm working with on A/B split test, he bought WP Feedback this week or last week, and he actually sent, I don't know if he knows that I know you, but he sent me a video. He'd literally gone to Camtasia, screenshotted, like videoed his screen of your video, and I'm talking to Vito now, of what you show when they first redeem their license. And it was all the bit about, I think you stood in your office, Vito, and you say things like, okay, down below, there's links to feedback. And, you know, we're still in the early stages. So give us all your feedback so that we can make the product as good as possible. And Tom just thought it was cracking. So bravo. It's really good. Really good. So that's nice. Yeah, there he goes. Ah, nice. Yeah. He was very impressed. I mean, so much so that he sent me the video at like 4 a.m. or something like that. It's quite good. Okay. Should we are going to have to knock it on the head, I'm afraid, Sabrina.
Right.
So no homework.
Yeah, no homework. Woohoo! Yeah. And next week we will continue about documentation, and we'll try to think, both of us will try to think about some ideas that we can use to make documentation like multi-purpose, to use it not only for existing but gaining new users. And we'll talk about gaining new users like through documentation in the next episode.
Yeah, that sounds great. Okay, so we'll knock around some ideas and see what sticks. So great.
Sorry,
marvelous.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to say that after the next episode, we'll have a little break. So I think you and me both will be working on documentation after that episode.
Yeah.
So we'll get something done.
Yeah, we're having a week off because we need a week off, and you've got things, I've got things. So we'll come back next week. Be here this time next week. So that's 2:00 UK time, Tuesday, the whatever 14 at 7 is. That's not very good, is it? 21st. So we'll come back then, and we'll see you this time next week. But then we'll have a week off. But okay, all right. Sabrina, as always, full of amazing insights. You'll be writing this up, of course, won't you, over on your website? And do you know, we should get a mailing list together or something so that people can, I don't know, subscribe to finding out what's going on. That would have been intelligent, wouldn't it? But anyway, maybe that's food for thought. I'm going to put the little holding screen on and say thank you, Sabrina, and I'll speak to you next week. Take it easy.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.